Oh, hey, don't watch this. This video is not for you. Hey, I'm serious. This video is not for you. Unless you're a dog aficionado. I think that some of the mills call it a dog nerd. If you're into research, if you're into knowing, want to know things specifically about this topic that we're about to go into, then I'm gonna blow it wide open. I'm going to tell you things you didn't know, and it's specifically for that guy who made the video about the books that he recommended. I'm gonna set it all straight. I'm gonna set it all straight here. So it seems like those books should be something important. Now, I don't know if the mills, especially the sub-mills, probably don't know what a book is, and if it's written in cursive, then hey, they can hire me to translate it for them. No. Oh, and while we're here, I might as well say, ahoy. Dobry den. Si pripravni, Hans. Dobre, zacznijmy. Ahoy, dobry den. Si pripravni, Hans. Dobre, zacznijmy. Okay, if you don't know, in the protection dog canine training, whole different niche than the pet dog trainers, there's a lot of podcasts, a lot of talk going on. And one of those podcasts is done with a guy named Hans Alpine, not really his name. He's a Czech Slovak guy originally. Anyway, he has his podcast with the pseudo host, the acolyte that he has. As opposed, it's totally different than what we do on Tactical Practical, Breaking the Silence with Robert Weatherwax and myself, two experts with over 100 years combined dog training. I say that because you want to check it out because we're different than this. And what they're doing is kind of the normal podcast. And sometimes they make mistakes. They make errors. And I'm here to set them straight like I am with a lot of other people because it's doing a service for everyone. So what did they get wrong? And what do you think that they got wrong? Well, I started talking about what books they recommend or what books Hans recommends and what is important. Professionals, and he breeds Eastern European German Shepherds, then imports them, has done that for a long time, and it's well known if you're in the dog world for protection dogs, military dogs, that sort of thing, that yes, Eastern Europe produces really good dogs in Slovakia and also in Czech, two separate countries now, and some in Germany too, but they're expensive. Depends. I got all those connections. And one of the things he never talks about is KMPV, the Dutch, and my super dog is through my Dutch connections. He is a KMPV dog. And anyway, I'll get into that later, but I'm jumping ahead like I'm always doing because look, hey, this is about everything. So he's recommending books, and he's talking about the most controversial trainer that all the new people hate because they never knew him, they never met him, they're against him. The force-free people hate him, even though they probably never read any of his books. And I'm going to set something straight here because a lot of people don't know this, other than a few on my inner circle, that this guy was my first mentor. And by mentor, he was influential on me. He was many things. He was a military trainer. He was an obedience trainer, vastly known for that. Had the largest dog club in Southern California, probably all of California at the time. Trained more dogs in person than anybody, way before there was any semblance of having internet. I know, oh, you mills and you sub-mills, you can't understand that. Yeah, well, this is back. And he wrote books. And he set doctrine for U.S. military and other militaries that follow. Why? Because he was structured. The guy was structured, and he based it off of producing the most results with the most dogs. So a lot of people don't like it. They don't understand it. They want to try to condemn things. They haven't seen any of the things that he did. They don't know about him. I mean, he was a movie trainer. And I got to say that, my second mentor really ended up a bigger name and a better movie, TV dog trainer, but nothing against this anyway. So he's talking about the guy. I'm going to set some things straight because there seems to be a lot of confusion. And I'm going to, for the first time, explain what the hell was going on, okay? So he's talking about different books, and he's bringing up books that he likes. I'll show you them, some of them, because I happen to have all those books and more. So it's important to get a glimpse about what he was talking about. Okay, so he was talking about this book. This was a book that was incredibly influential to him, to Hans. This was what he used. There were a lot of editions of this book. They changed the cover quite a bit, and there were some changes in some of the later renditions of this book because this book is structured. And Hans incorrectly said how much this book cost when it came out. It wasn't as expensive as he said it was. Then he talked about this book, which I think he may not know, but it came in red. It's sort of an orange actually color, or red. I got several copies of these books because they're going to become collector's books, even though there were millions of these made. I mean, he made quite a bit of money from this. These were the Bibles, and this won Best Dog Book of the Year. Hans doesn't agree with the way that he was training for protection. That's what I started out. It's pretty close to what he was doing. And this is also before he wasn't able to get hold of genetically bred dogs. They had to screen all their dogs. So it was a longer process, harder process. And I will get to that. But the thing is that this book contains the first obedience book. Then it goes into the guard dog and plant security, totally different type of dog, and talks about watchdogs. There's a lot of changes of that name. If you know things, people use guard dog, watchdog, attack dog. There's all these different names, and they mean slightly different things to each of the authors. But I'm not going to get into that. But what I am saying is that now this book was more expensive originally. But this book is crucial. If you're a dog trainer, you need to have read this book. Hans is correct about that. And there is a photo on the back of the author, who was the chief dog trainer for Walt Disney Studios. This is back when Walt Disney was still alive, and they were making a lot of movies with live animals, not CGI and stuff. And actually Walt Disney, the company, owned a place in Washington State where it was more or less like a game preserve, and they actually would film some of their movies there. The Incredible Journey, he was the dog trainer. He was not the cat trainer on that. And he had a lot of assistant trainers. That's something I didn't know for a really long time. He was a head trainer, but he had a lot of assistant trainers. He had some really good assistant trainers. But that's not all. As he went forward in time, the next book, because he was following at the time, the only thing for people who were into dog training as a hobby, which is what either you're doing movies or you're doing military police work or you were a hobby sport trainer. There wasn't any of this pet dog nonsense that exploded in the 90s, and there wasn't agility, there wasn't trick competitions, there wasn't fly ball, there wasn't nose work in the pure sense of it. Schutzhund in the United States wasn't anything big at the time. Most all these sports that started booming up, rally, AKC rally, all this stuff didn't exist. What did exist was AKC and also UKC obedience, which are fairly similar. And so the first thing is called companion dog level, which you can get to with the first book, and then you can get to what is called companion dog excellent. Fetch is involved in this one. Then utility dog is a higher level, which the dog has to do scent discrimination, do directed jumps, things like that. This is actually for tactical dogs. This is nothing. This is absolutely nothing, really. Although these are considered, like, you get a dog to this level, you did accomplish something pretty good. But those of us who train tactical dogs, this is nothing. This is this level is nothing. The distances are nothing, and the signal work is nothing. I just got to put that in a framework. He also came out, his last book, and I will explain about the name. That's one of the things I want to say, was the tracking aspect. And it all ties together with his system, his method, and it works. If you do that, I will say that using his method makes the dog completely reliant on the handler, trainer, and the dog is not a thinking dog in the sense of working like you would if you were a search and rescue dog, if you were a lead sled dog. A lot of dogs, movie dogs, they got to have more of a decision-making process of their own. They can't just be, it's sort of like they're the French Foreign Legion. They don't make a move unless they're told. There's a place for that in some militaries, and there's a place for that. A lot of people What they want with a dog is that sort of dog, but you know, if you're trying to do more than that, you won't get there like what I've done with my American Bulldog, which I'm the only one, of course. I gotta mention my credentials, you know, so because people don't do research anymore. That's one of the reasons too. This is about research. You're not researching, you're not finding out all the things that you need to know about this. That I have an American Bulldog that's 115 pounds. He's more Johnson than Scott. He was bred actually to be a catch dog for hog hunting. Never use him for that. I'm not going to use him for that, but I've trained him to limp, and there's something coming up pretty soon that's going to blow your mind again. I'll just leave it for that. I'll just leave it at that, because you can check out my other videos, of course, on that. Now, okay, I want to explain about the name, and then we'll delve into some other books and set Hans straight on some things. He's calling him Kohler, which is how you would pronounce the name in English. That's correct. However, actually, his real name is German, Köhler. But there's a reason he didn't want this said, because there were a lot of German trainers that had moved to the United States. He was already in the United States, but and during World War II, he was a major trainer for the war dog department. War dogs, not military working dogs, war dogs. He set doctrine. He set up the training for that. Now, Rudd Weatherwax, the original trainer of Pal Lassie, was a guy who was working in conjunction with that, because he was selecting dogs that he thought could make it into the war program. Anyway, so he was actually German name, but World War II, you don't want to sound like a German working for the U.S. Army. So he switched his name pronunciation to Keeler. And everybody in the movie industry knows him by Keeler. So if you talked, I mean, most of those people are dead, but Frank Inn, all these guys, everybody knew him. That's stuff we'll cover on our podcast, Robert Weatherwax and I. I want to set that straight. And I think Michael Ellis, when he first started training, he's old enough to have been under Keeler when Keeler ran the Orange County dog training, which is where I think he started learning in that. Now, he was my mentor. He wasn't just a guy. I started before any of these guys, 1974, and in the late 70s, I was in correspondence with Bill, as we called him, and he was giving me a lot of advice on what to do, and he told me, do as much with dogs as you possibly can. Learn as many different types of dog training. That's why I've done sled dogs, hunting dogs, you know, on and on, anti-poaching, all these things I've done, trick dogs, movie dogs, and then of course, you can look to my other videos and I'll talk about my other mentor, but I have not really ever talked about the first one, and he was the biggest name at the time. So I actually know, and Hans was saying, he has tried to make videos following the method, Keeler method, but there are other people who knew Keeler who have made videos and DVDs of that, by the way. I'm not going to just hand that out, you know. Research, people, where is it? Now, he was talking about going back and I'm going to make some connections here that he didn't know, that Hans does not know, and a lot of people don't know, and I'm handing it out. Okay, so he talks about, and this is a very influential book, Konrad Most, German, who was in World War I setting doctrine and training, okay, for the German Shepherd, which the German Shepherd had just been labeled as a stable breed in the late 1890s. Okay, so from him comes several German trainers who moved to the United States and were hugely influential to everybody in the United States. So who were they? Well, all right, here we go. This is a reprint. Carl Spitz. Carl Spitz, famous now. Now Keeler actually dedicates his last book to Carl Spitz. Carl Spitz worked in movies. He trained dogs. He had the Hollywood dog training school. He provided dogs for other movies. Actually, Terry Toto on Wizard of Oz was his dog. Now, he didn't do the training, and we'll tell stories about that process on my podcast with Robert Weatherwax. We'll explain about that. But he also trained and owned the dogs for the first Amazing Doberman Gang, or the Doberman Gang, or the Amazing Dobermans, the Daring Dobermans. There's 3 movies, I think. But he was an influential trainer, and he also worked for a lot of celebrities. And he also owned the first dog that was Call of the Wild, when they did Call of the Wild, the talking version. That Saint Bernard was his dog too. Okay, not easy dogs to train, by the way. And from him, shoot out a couple of guys that were influential to other dog trainers in the United States. And now I've got the actual books, and they're hard to find, and they're the Joseph Weber German. This guy trained Blanche Saunders, who started AKC Obedience. This guy's a German trainer. That's his book now. Also another one, Companion Dog Training is the name of the book, Hans Tusuti. Another German who came to the United States. These books are influential because they're showing the method, because the Germans had codified, the British had to. Different story, not going into it at this time. But see, I am a canine expert. I know a lot. More than anybody you're going to find on YouTube, that's for certain, or Instagram or anywhere else. Hans doesn't know this. He needs to find these books, make the connection, and he also made an error when he talked about Winifred Strickland, saying Winifred Strickland was a show dog. She was an AKC, obedience dog trainer and breeder, and she trained almost completely only German Shepherds, and that's one of the things she learned how to train German Shepherds incredibly well. This book has been reprinted many times. When she was alive, several versions. I just changed the cover. The method's the same in here. But she still holds the record for the most titles, and I think the most utility dog titles in AKC for German Shepherds. No, still to this day, she was a phenomenal trainer. Like I'm saying, she knew how to train German Shepherds. Something, because Hans loves German Shepherds, you know, he didn't talk about the #1 action dog in the entire damn world. One of the best dog to ever be in movies, who did the most things by himself, the most dangerous action, Rin Tin Tin. This guy, Lee Duncan, is my idol. My dog, my super dog, my Dutch Shepherd, and Dutch is a KMPV Dutch Shepherd. He's better than a German Shepherd. He can do everything that Rin Tin Tin could do, and he's faster. So I will pick Dutch Shepherds. Hans can pick German Shepherds all he wants, but I will go for KMPV Dutch Shepherds all day long, and they're better looking dogs too. They're better looking than Malinois. Pretty much they're Malinois, but better looking. So this is to set him straight, because I hate it when people come out and they talk about things, and he's acting as if, okay, here's the connection to the past, and people don't like it. They're calling it obsolete and outdated and stuff like that, but he doesn't have the full picture. So I'm setting it all straight, you know. So I think he is a guy who knows what he's doing in dog training for what he's doing. He's doing protection dogs. He did search and rescue dogs, I believe. I think he did avalanche dogs, and he cares about his dogs, which is a big thing for me. I think he slept with his dogs when he was basically more or less homeless, but he slept with like 10 of his dogs or something. Those are big points. But as far as the history, Hans, about making all the connections and getting everything straight, gotta come to me, baby. Gotta come to me, because I know all this stuff. I'm the only one. Plus, I was there. Keeler was my mentor, okay? My mentor, not a guy that I looked at in the distance, not a guy I just looked at his books. He was my mentor, okay? There are not a lot of us left alive who are in that boat. Hey, that one's for you guys, and that's for everybody out there. Where Hans said that he didn't think anybody had done any videos of it. There are many people who did. Exactly, and there are a couple of people who ripped off Keeler completely. There was a guy in the 90s who did videotapes and sold them. He made millions and millions of dollars. And he just took the Keeler books and did exactly the same thing. I guess Bill knew about it, but this was, you know, he didn't care at this point, I guess. He'd made a lot of money. He was retired now, living in the state of Washington. So he didn't care. He could have sued that guy and got all sorts of money, because it's just clearly taken. So there was one done. Then there was another guy later that did a DVD as an abbreviated version of that. It's not as in-depth. The guy who did the videotapes just took and did several of the books, put them together. But that guy never went anywhere as a dog trainer, because that's all he could do. He was an imitator, not a creator. He couldn't do the trick stuff. He couldn't do movie work. He couldn't do protection dog stuff. He couldn't do anything beyond what he was stealing from Keeler. So Hans, you didn't know that. And I'm not telling you, research it.